All right, fam, let's go. Coming at you with another video. Today, we're going to talk some leadership stuff. It's your boy Chadski. I put up content just about every day, streaming, videos, guides, all the fun things that help give you real rock life application. And I've been doing it for 2 months, and the response has been absolutely incredible, crazy. It's Christmas time of year, and we were going to do another good video here that is going to kind of fall into our leadership series. This is going to be the 10 things I learned running leadership. And so if you like the channel, be sure to subscribe. If you enjoy any videos or anything like that, throw a thumbs up and like the videos. Help me out here, help the channel. It's all free to you. And it really helps out the channel. It helps us do what we do. My Discord link is in the description. Join my Discord. Give me video ideas. This is where a lot of my stuff comes from. And we have a lot of people who have asked about more leadership content, okay? And this is also good for players to understand as well. So players know what to expect out of good leaders. Because it's one thing as a player to never be in leadership and think you know what they should do and know how things should be in leadership. And it's another thing to be told, like, hey, here are things leaders need to do. And then as a player, you know that going in, saying, hey, are they doing the things that Chadski said to do? And that's how you can tell what kind of leadership you have. Leadership, guys, it's not a lot of fun. If people are doing it for the wrong reasons, it's not a lot of fun. It is taxing. Whether you're doing territory, whether you're doing, different tasks within the kingdom, MGEs, different things, it is not fun at all. Okay, you have to really enjoy the game, love it, and love leading people, and that's what makes it bearable, if you will. So let's go through this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the top 10 things that I learned as a leader. Top 10 things I learned. I was the king of 2080. I rolled over with my crew to a big Imperium kingdom, led that alliance with Peace. Peace helped me out in 2080, obviously, as our co-R5s there. And then, I've got Crix and Cortex and Peace. And the four of us really led a lot in big Imperiums. We created our own Imperium kingdom. Peace really held it all together. She was the one that was doing everything, the main R5. And so we all have so much experience in this. And there are certain things I did, and I did extremely well. And there are certain things I stayed away from because I wasn't very good at it. And so let's get into this and talk about it now. We're going to talk about the top 10 things I learned in leadership. First and foremost, and this is constant. People have to understand this, and people have to know this, okay? Nepotism kills kingdoms. Do you understand what I'm saying with this? Nepotism kills kingdoms. If kingdoms give favoritism and nepotism to friends, to groups, to other leaders, that will kill your kingdom. It'll 100% kill your kingdom. And so what people have to understand sometimes is that whether you're giving out MGE spots, whether you're looking at data and everybody has a standard for where you have to be in your KVK with kills and deads, people notice. If you're a leader and you don't think that people are watching you and watching how you treat, maybe you give a pass on the dead weight list for one of your buddies or a fellow leadership member. People see that. They see that stuff, and you can't hide. And you got to be honest with players, and you got to see it. And so that is first and foremost. Nepotism will kill kingdoms. If you favor other people over others, if you have double standards for your friends or double standards for other leaders than you do for your players, your kingdom will die. Straight up, it'll die. Because players do not want to jack with that. They don't want to be in a kingdom where the leaders of the kingdom can make whatever the decisions they want, and not all rules apply to everyone. Nepotism kills kingdoms. Please understand that. That is one of the biggest cautionary tales I can give you. Okay? So we get into this and we'll say, okay, what's the second thing we're looking at here? The second thing we're looking at is, that would be the same one. Hold on. I've got you. There you go. Lead by example. Okay? If you are a leader in this game. You can't ask players to go do things you are not willing to go do yourself. Okay? If you're a builder, if you're leading the build team, and you're just directing players to go into a flag, your tail better be in that flag too, building stuff. And most leaders do a good job with this. If you are war leading, you can't go demand people to swarm flags if you're not willing to do it yourself. You can't demand people to go in and try to face tank a murder ball and do everything you can to push the enemy back if you're not at the vanguard. It is so much easier to lead when you're the one leading by example. If you break MGE cap as a leader, then you pay the punishment. And I always like to say leaders pay twice the punishment. Okay? We lead by example, and that's how we do it. So you have to lead by example. People sniff this stuff out. They can tell if you're a phony and a fake, and different rules apply to different people. You have to lead by example, okay? So the third thing we'll talk about, and this is something that I always enjoy doing and leading, it is MGE Priority. Let me explain something to you. More rogues are created and more civil wars happen over MGE than anything else. So you better take MGE seriously. You better take it seriously. You better take the rankings seriously. And more importantly, you have to communicate with players. If you're going to fix MGEs and you're going to allot your MGEs to players who did a really good job at KVK, or they've done a really good job in leadership and they've busted their tails, and you want to get it to rally garrison leaders, you have to do the right things in MGE. I could do a whole video on MGE. I ran MGE. I was really good at it. One of the things that made me really good at it was that I communicated with everyone. Everyone who applied for MGE spots, even if they didn't get them, I would talk to them saying, hey, I could not get you in this MGE top 15. I can do it next MGE, or I can kind of work with them on what their commanders are and things like that. You have to communicate with players. If you're a leader that thinks you're just going to throw out an MGE list and you don't have to explain it to anyone, you're eventually going to create all kinds of dissension and people talking behind your back and assuming. Just remember, the less you communicate, the more people your players are communicating in their brains. And a lot of the times what they communicate in their brains is not fact. So you have to communicate, and you have to take MGE serious. Okay? This one is actually a really good one that I like. Okay? Let's see here. One of the things I learned, never, ever, 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 ever tell your kingdom not to fight. Never do that. Ever, ever, ever. Never tell your kingdom not to fight. The minute you're in Diplo and you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do for let me just move this over here. You're trying to figure out what you're trying to do for a zone opening, and maybe you're overmatched, and you haven't really kind of figured out your strategy, regardless what your strategy is, never, ever, 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 ever send out a mail or send out anything in Discord or anything to your members saying, we're not going to fight this. We're not going to fight this zone. Don't ever do that, okay? Because what happens when you do that is that players will not push Crystal Tech. They won't take KVK as seriously. They won't even show up because you say, we're not fighting. I'm not showing up. You never tell people in your kingdom that you're not fighting. Never, ever do that. Ever. Okay? Even if you don't plan to go too hard in a zone, you don't say, hey, we're just going to kind of mess around in the zone here. It's not a big deal. People aren't going to show up. They're just not going to show up. So you never, ever say that. As far as anybody's concerned, we're going full throttle in that zone until I tell you otherwise. That's what you have to do. So never tell I've seen it happen way too many times. I've seen Diplo change. I've seen campmates change. I've seen allies change. And a kingdom will absolutely screw themselves because they've already told their players they're not fighting in Zone 5. Now they got to go retell their players, hey, we are fighting in Zone 5. And you know how that communication and information gets disseminated. Somebody's not going to show up. Okay, so never, ever, ever do that. Okay? Number 5 is one I like a lot. Number 5 is all about empowering leaders. Okay? You have to empower leaders to give them tasks. You got to give people a chance. You can't do everything yourself. You cannot. You have to give people a chance to show they have capabilities to lead. Okay. You have to give people a chance to show they have the capabilities to do certain tasks. And you got to empower them and not undercut them. You can't tell somebody to go take over MGE and then go undercut their decisions. Okay. You're not empowering your leaders. That's a bad leadership. If you tell somebody to go do something and then you're just going to come in and undercut, or you're going to hover over them and micromanage them while they're trying to do a task. You have to empower your leaders, and it will help you so much. Okay. Number 6, this one I am not very good at. Okay. It's discernment. All right. If you see red flags with players, if you see red flags where you've caught a player kind of being dishonest, or you've seen red flags where a group is kind of covering for a player, or something's going on with an MGE cap break, or some resources that were looted from a farm or something like that. If you see any kind of malicious thing that goes on, trust your gut. What's your gut telling you? Are these people being honest? All right, are they being truthful? You have to have good discernment. And if you're blinded because maybe the people that you need to have discernment with are friends of yours, then you go ask somebody else to have some discernment, because you don't want to be blinded saying, oh no, I'm just going to expect the best out of them, and because I know the guy or girl and I like him or whatever, and they're going to eventually screw you in the end. If you don't have a gut check and have somebody with an unbiased opinion come in and say, yeah, that's nonsense, they can't pull that stuff, you have to address that immediately. You have to have discernment. Discernment is a big deal. Okay. Number 7 is one of my favorites. All right. Because I've seen this happen so many times. It's called servant leadership. Okay. When you are in leadership, it is not for your freaking ego. Okay. People that are in leadership for the vanity, people that are in leadership for the power because they have some sick, twisted thing in their mind where they want to have power over people, those are the worst leaders ever. Run. You ever get into a kingdom where somebody is so egotistical and so out of their minds that is you have to have a little bit of an ego to be a good king. You have to have a little bit of an ego and some pride to be a good leader. But basing your leadership duties and your stature and your quote unquote title on your vanity, in that you want to be a great leader because you want all the power over the people and you want to be the guy or girl out in front and get all the recognition, do not do that. That is the worst. The best types of leaders, straight up, the best leaders in this game are, guess what? They're people who do not want to be in leadership. Those are the best leaders in this game. We had a kingdom one time where this girl was banging down our door every day. I want to be in leadership. I want to be in leadership. I want to be R4. I want to be in leadership. She was telling everybody in the kingdom to talk to us, to let her be R4. I mean, it was out of control. It got to a point where it was like, fine, gosh, you can be in leadership. Then she turned around and played a freaking power card on everybody else in the alliance, thought she was bigger than everybody else, and just turned it into a freaking mess. And it was complete opposite. I had to explain to her, like, you can't be in leadership anymore. Hell no. Okay? Because you want to be in leadership so bad. She was like, well, shouldn't all leaders want to be in leadership? I was like, no, the best leaders don't want to be in leadership. They're doing it as a service. They're not doing it as a power trip, ego, stupid situation. So those are the best. The best leaders are the ones who serve their community and serve their members. Okay. Number 8 on this list, pretty good, robust leadership. Okay. The number one thing that I think we learned is that you have to have a good amount of delegation of your leadership. You have to be able to tell people and delegate what to do, tell people what to do, empower them, just like we said in number 5, empower those leaders. You have to have a lot of people helping. If you do not, okay, it happens. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. If you don't have a lot of people helping, or if people who like just in number 7, who aren't really a servant leader, they're just there for the ego, but they don't do shit. Those kind of people will drive good leaders and good task people and good territory people and war leaders and MGE people, and all your good leaders will have to pick up the slack because nobody else wants to do anything. So you have to have a robust leadership where people work together and you have multiple people doing multiple things and everybody's picking up their slack. And that will save burnout for leadership. That will save, typically so many times in this game, great kingdoms are run by like one or two people and they do everything. They do absolutely everything, either because they can't delegate or they don't trust anybody else, okay? Or because they know somebody else is not going to do as good of a job. If they do that and you have one or two people running a kingdom, the kingdom will eventually die because those people will get burned out. Mark my words. They will get burned out. It happens every single freaking time. Okay? Number 9 on here. This is very important. Communication and listening. Okay? You have to listen to your members. You have to communicate. You have to have town halls. Okay, they got to be on board with what you're doing. They got to be on board with how you're building your kingdom. They got to know exactly what the standards are in KVK for kills and deads. They got to know that you're readily available and able to talk to anybody. You got to communicate with players. Even if it's not in a town hall, you got to communicate with players. People who sit, the most successful R5s who are running a kingdom, the most successful ones are ones that are engaged with their players every day, every single day. And they're approachable. You have a player that they're willing to take time with, and they might have a simple question, or a player might have a suggestion. Okay, if you have R5s that completely disconnect from the community, your kingdom's gonna die. It's just not gonna happen. Okay, so you have to have leaders who communicate and listen to their players. You have to. That is very, very important. And then the last thing on here that I think is the most important thing that I learned in running a kingdom is you have to identify what kind of kingdom you are going to be. Do you understand? Everybody get that? You have to identify if you're going to be a casual kingdom. You have to identify if you're going to be a competitive kingdom. You have to identify with your leaders and the people who make decisions what kind of kingdom you're going to be, because you cannot have it both ways. You can't be a friends kingdom. You can't be a kingdom with a group of all you guys are all friends and you're just kumbaya around the fire, but you also want to be competitive. You got to identify it. You have to communicate. We are a competitive kingdom. Here are our standards for KVK. If you miss these standards, you're dead weight. You're leaving. I don't care if you're my best friend. I've had to kick my best friend out of a kingdom before. Okay? And that goes back into number 1, nepotism kills kingdoms. I had to kick my best friend in the game out of the kingdom I was in because he was dead weight. I've had to do that before. And it doesn't feel very good. But it gave me a chance to continue to develop the kingdom because they trusted me. And they knew, well, hell, if Chadski kicked out so-and-so, then he could kick me out. Well, hell yeah, I can. And so you have to identify that. It goes into number 10, kingdom identification. If you're going to be a competitive kingdom, you have to act like a competitive kingdom. You have to make hard decisions like a competitive kingdom. And you got to do all your migration and your recruitment like a competitive kingdom. And you cannot have it both ways. You can't say we're going to be more casual and competitive at the same time. It does not work. Okay, your players sniff that stuff out very fast. Really good fighters that are fighting with you and they're members of your kingdom, if you try to give them some dog and pony show where you say, yeah, we're going to go fight, ACs and low Imperiums, and we're going to go be really competitive. And then they turn around and see that you've held on to R4s over here or friends of yours over here that have been dead weight for 2 KVKs, you're going to kill the kingdom. They're not going to stay. They're going to get the hell out of there. So those are the 10 things you guys got to understand. Nepotism kills kingdoms, 100%. You have to lead by example. You got to prioritize your MGEs and don't just sweep it under the rug like it's no big deal. Never, ever, ever tell your kingdom not to fight, ever. You got to empower your leaders. You got to have good discernment. You got to lead as a servant. You got to lead with no vanity. And it is a service you're providing. You need a robust leadership. You always have to communicate and listen. And you got to identify what kind of kingdom you're going to be. Those are the 10 things that I learned in leadership. And they are the most important things I can think of. Those of you who are building kingdoms, those of you who are in leadership who think oh yeah, I already know what to do. No, you don't know what to do. Because sometimes I had to be reminded of this nonsense. I had to be reminded of this stuff that I wasn't doing right. So even if you've been a leader for years, read this. And tell me honestly if you're actually doing these things, okay? Because a lot of times you'll be complacent. You've been doing it for so long, you look up and realize you don't even talk to your freaking members anymore. You'll look up and realize you haven't even put priorities in MGE, and you got people pissed off and leaving the kingdom because MGE wasn't handled right. So I don't care if you've been leading for years or if you're just starting. Look at these, respect what I'm saying here, and use these to be a good leader in whatever kingdom you're in. And so with that being said, that's part of more of our leadership stuff. We have a leadership series. We've talked about war leading. We talked about migration and recruitment. And now we're talking about 10 things that I learned when I was doing leadership. So any questions or feedback, always send them to me. Always send them to me on YouTube in the comments, or always send them to me in my Discord. You can join my Discord. The description is in the link, or the link is in the description, and you can come hang out with us. And I hope this content helps you out. I hope this content helps out all of the players in your kingdom. If you're a player in a kingdom and you think your leaders need to see this, send them the link and let them read it. Okay? Because if you do those 10 things, you're going to be a much better leader and you're going to run a much better kingdom. With that being said, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys. We're going to have fun this holiday season in 2024 before this 2025 new year. And we hope you have a great day, broskies.